We now have, as you heard from the secretary, both of our secretaries, Secretary Becerra and Secretary Johnson also mentioned this in her video, that the MPA is about people and communities. Our plan is centered on Californians who are directly impacted by the work across agencies in partnership with local government and community organizations. The MPA does not sit on a shelf. Today's event and countless others around the state, local aging and disability action plan meetings, community forums, and listening sessions, all of them inspire action to address the most pressing issues that impact older adults, people with disabilities, and caregivers. We are honored to be joined this morning by 3 California residents, one by way of the Bronx 50 years ago, but she is she's identifies as the Bronx 50 years later as a Californian, who will share their individual stories and lived experience. Our next panel is titled Voices from the Community, What Matters Most, moderated by my remarkable colleague and Master Plan for Aging leader, Sarah Steenhausen, Deputy Director of Policy, Research, and Equity at the California Department of Aging. Welcome to the stage.
Well, thank you so much, Susan. What an honor and a pleasure to be here with all of you today. And just to say what amazing remarks we've heard so much from incredible leaders at the state level and Secretary Becerra, speaking to the importance of uplifting voices of the community. And it is only by uplifting these voices that we really share our humanity and we inform how we advance the Master Plan for Aging. And just to recommit, the Master Plan for Aging, we say it all the time, it's more than just a plan. The Master Plan for Aging is a movement. It's a movement about people. It's about changing perceptions of the way we view aging and the way we view disability, and really changing the paradigm. And so I am so honored to be here today with Elaine Samuels from San Francisco, Priscilla Young from Sacramento, and Eiley Cato from San Diego, who will be sharing their stories and uplifting some of the really key values that we are advancing with the Master Plan for Aging. And before we do that, we are really fortunate to be able to show 2 videos that also highlight some of the very compelling stories of people from the community. So please enjoy as you watch these videos. Thank you.
My mom told me to be quiet. We lived in a neighborhood. I remember when we were walking to Chinatown, and we were walking on the unpaved. And then I remember my mom say, my name in Chinese is Agong. Agong, you always walk on the unpaved. This is where we walk. The paved is only for the white people. Never walk on the paved street. It's not meant for you. You're gonna get in trouble. So we always walk on the unpaved. See, I was never in tune with the general population. I was always the outside looking in. First, because I was Chinese, and it was poor English, and then I was a faggot, and I was too skinny. Yeah. And then when your program came up, I said, I don't think I really want to share my story. And it's none of their business, this is pretty private. And then and I listened to it and I said, damn it, I have a voice. Why am I keeping it silent? Damn it, people are hurting. They're not speaking up. My voice is tiny, but if we get a group, your voices, you the next generation, see, I'm going to be passing. Yeah. I was taught to be quiet. We didn't express ourselves. That's Asian. You don't express your family business. You don't express your feeling. I was pretty quiet, but you can't stop me now. You can't stop me now, girlfriend. No, no, no. Yep. No, it's celebration of myself. Yeah, I did well. Whatever time I have, I did well for myself.
All these people worked all their life in the fields. Most of our population here in our community, they're farm workers. They work picking up the food that we eat. And for them to not be able to have a decent end of life, it's very sad. Very sad.
So one of the big reasons why we requested that mobile clinic is because of lack of transportation here in Imperial County, especially here in Calexico. The seniors, they're left behind, they're forgotten, and everybody gets busy, because we all have busy lives, right? But, they still need to be part of our priority in our schedule every single day.
Ya me cansé, ya soy viejillo, ya me canso, pues ya no tengo la misma agilidad, la misma fuerza de antes, ya andaba en friega. Ando en friega, porque ando en friega, y el campo es muy pesado. El campo tiene que entrar con ganas, con energía, nada de pensar en los problemas hay que olvidarlos ahí. Porque ahí no quieren, ahí te exigen que muevas las manos, que ponle, muévete, vámonos, dale la lucha.
And then us being out here in the valley, we get forgotten a lot. I think a lot of them are citizens, or they have their residence, their green card, I should say. But a lot of them, because they are farm workers, they live in Mexicali because it's so expensive to live here. With the salary that they get, being field workers, they have, enough to pay rent here. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them, they have no other choice but to live across the border. Mm-hmm. So here's the border. Here's the border. People that are coming down through the right door here is people that are coming from Mexico. And you could see a lot of them with their bags and their stuff ready to go to work. Buenos días.
I'm originally from Calexico, so I left to San Diego in 1985 and came back in 2017. Yeah, I saw the need of healthcare was very limited here for the community. We had, at that time, 6,000 patients for one primary care physician. I don't know if I can really explain it, but you just have to be part of that culture, that you lived it. So if you lived it, then you feel it, and then you can relate, because you understand where they're coming from. Because there's a lot of good things that happen here, but everybody wants to know what bad things are happening. But there's good things that are happening. There's good people and hardworking people that are trying to make a difference. There are problems no matter where you go. We're not the only ones, but there's also solutions. So we just have to work hard and being part of the solution.
Mira, tengo la licencia comercial, tengo el 100% de mis ojos, tengo el 100% de mi salud. Gracias a Dios.
So, what incredibly powerful stories. We heard from Harry in San Francisco, and then we heard from Ruben, Pablo, and Jesus in Calexico. And a special thanks to the SCAN Foundation, the Meta Fund, and the California Healthcare Foundation for the tremendous work in developing those videos. So, such important themes that were highlighted in those videos of empowerment, of access to services, of acceptance, and of community. And I'm now so happy to have the honor and privilege to hear from Elaine, Priscilla, and Eiley about their experiences so that we can uplift these voices in all the work that we do. So Elaine, it has just been a real pleasure getting to know you. And when you and I had the opportunity to speak, I was so moved by the experience you talked about as a licensed vocational nurse and a career that brought so much meaning to you, and what it was like to navigate COVID and then to retire and the challenges you faced accessing services, navigating the system. Can you talk to us a bit about what this experience has been like for you and how you were eventually able to find such meaning through your engagement with the Booker T. Washington Community Center?
First and foremost, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was forced out of retirement. I was forced to retire when COVID came. I was informed that I was an essential worker, therefore I needed to work regardless of what kind of immune systems that I had. Number one, I had thyroid problems. I developed vascular disease, and my veins and arteries were inflamed, and I also had cataracts at that time, which I was unaware of. So what I did was I tried to retire. I applied for my vacation time, which was denied. I applied for my sick time, which was denied because I was told that I wasn't sick, that I was mandated to work. And what I did was I got me a good therapist to help me navigate through this. And I applied for my Social Security, which I got no help. They informed me that I would have to fill out a form, and the form would take me an hour to fill out. And I needed to go on the computer. I told them that I was computer illiterate, and I didn't know what to do and how to do. And they told me I was on my own. So I called the 1-800 number, and I got a wonderful young lady in New Jersey. She spent a whole hour on the phone with me filling out the forms. It was imperative that I have the forms. I couldn't get my medical care if I didn't have Part B. I couldn't get my retirement if I didn't have Part B. I couldn't get my Social Security until I had Part B. Me not knowing that I needed all these pieces of information to get help. I got a letter from my landlord informing me they no longer take Section 8. I've been living in my building 50 years. I never received Section 8. All of a sudden, he thought this was an opportune time to evict me. And then he found out I was a working person, paying my bills on time, and he didn't bother me thereafter. I tried to get a lawyer. No lawyer would take my case regarding Social Security, regarding the landlord, regarding any of my issues. I called the union. I've been in the union paying them $60 every month for 44 years. No, I couldn't get a lawyer to help me. I used my 500 hours of vacation time to pay my bills. After that ran out, I finally got my 2,000 hours of sick time. My doctor had to help me get that okay to get my money and pay all my bills. This took me about 3 months. If I didn't have the insight how things work or do research to find out from people how things work, I would be put in the street. And also, I had a vascular disease that I needed taken care of, and I was started on infusions. The infusions was $2,000 a month to stay alive. And then I had my thyroid problems were escalating, and I was depressed. And I was saying to myself, I had put 44 years in this system, and I cannot get a decent person to help me. Also, I called Social Security and asked them about my checks. And I told them I understand that they had to take taxes out, and how do I do that? And they told me I had to figure it out myself. So what I did was call over the United States to family members that were 90 years old and asked them, what do I do and how do I do? They told me to have the state take out 20% or 15% of my check, and so I wouldn't have to pay back pay for 12 months with interest. So I had to do that myself. And I was sitting by the bus stop one day, and with all these medical issues and all these trials and tribulations, and also was another issue. I didn't have any beneficiary on any of the jobs I worked. I got these jobs in the 70s, in the 80s, and if I would have died in the street, all my money would go back to the job or go to the state. And I've come to find out the majority of people that started working at that time, they don't even know what happened to, they didn't have any beneficiaries. And that was devastating. We don't know what happened to those papers. They disappeared. And I was crying by the bus stop one day. And this young lady from USS came over to me and she asked me, was I a senior? And I said, yes, baby, I am a senior. And she said, why don't you come over to the Wellness Center and we can help you. And I said, really? She said, yeah. And when I went to the Wellness Center in Booker T. Washington, and I told them my story, and they were welcoming, and they told me they were here to help me. They had a food program, and our secretary was talking about food is medicine. They have an organic program for seniors. They would get healthy food from an organic farm, and they had lawyers there to help me. They had a brain surgeon, a brain neurologist that comes every week to help seniors with managing good brain therapy and eating healthy and how to live better. They had a program, they had social workers on site. We have 3 psychiatric social workers, and we also have a therapist to work with us. And the center provided me with the care and love that I needed, that I wasn't getting from the system. And I've been a senior wellness member for the last 1.5 years. I have evolved, I have become, I'm even better than I was as a psychiatric nurse. They're helping me if I have problems with landlords, if I have problems with anything, they're there for me. I had a hospital stay. They sent out the social workers to make sure I was getting the proper care. They sent out an advocate for me to speak up for me if I couldn't speak for myself. I have connected with other people going through different things. On Mondays, I go for walks for 1.5 hours to maintain my status as being healthy. I take Tai Chi. I'm also in line dancing every week. And podcasting, and I like poetry. So I'm doing things on poetry, hearing my real voice, and becoming and evolving and being the best that I can be. And the skills that I've learned throughout my life working in psychiatry, I'm helping other seniors. I volunteer, I'm encouraging, and I am becoming and not being selfish. And I'm grateful to be here. We need people out there need help, and we get stuck. And I am computer almost literate now, and I'm in this. And finally, I've never spoken in an audience this great and this grand before, but I knew it was important. Somebody out there, and in the world need this information. They have help. People are out here ready to help. Thank you.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. Elaine, you can hold that. That's okay. Thank you. What an amazing story. And we are so honored that you shared it with us and the experience that you went through and how much hope you have and engagement and purpose in life. And something else that we really have been really intentional about focusing on the master plan for aging is that aging is about all of us. It's about community. Secretary Becerra spoke a bit about this when he talked about how we have to take care of our youth to ensure that they too can grow up to become successful and healthy older adults. So this is why the Master Plan for Aging has really prioritized a master plan for aging that crosses and bridges aging and disability. because people with disabilities also age. And we have been so fortunate to be able to meet Priscilla Young, who is going to talk to us about the really moving story and talk to us about what it was like growing up as a child with a disability and the challenges you faced navigating the system, and then what you have come to learn through about employment and the importance of community and engagement. Thank you, Priscilla, for being here.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Elaine. That was so beautiful, your story. This morning, I'm so thankful because I was able to get up on the stage by myself with my long white cane as a blind person. And it may be a really small thing, but it's a big thing to me. Because if I didn't meet the Society for the Blind, I wouldn't be here today. And we've heard that saying that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to help somebody who's experiencing vision loss, and it takes resources, and it takes a village of people who care and mentors to help us to be able to become who we are meant to be. So my story began in my adolescence. I was 13 years old, and I remember this day when I was trying to practice piano, and all of a sudden, I couldn't read my music anymore, and I didn't know what was happening. So it turns out I went to the doctor with my family, and I had an eye condition called optic nerve atrophy. And that began my story and my journey of experiencing vision loss as a youth, and it was devastating. I remember that I couldn't read my books, I couldn't study. There were bright lights in my room and magnification. I had to read size 30 font to even read a book to do my homework, and that took a very, very long time. I had, apparently, according to the educators, I had too much vision to learn Braille, so I was really stuck in the middle, and I soon became illiterate. I couldn't do my homework, and I couldn't participate in everyday school activities like PE. I remember that I was isolated in a room in the PE office answering the phone for the PE teachers because they couldn't figure out how I could participate in physical education, catch a ball, run, do all the things that my friends were doing. So soon I just fell into deep depression, and I was suicidal. I didn't want to live anymore because I couldn't imagine a life with vision loss. I thought to myself, I am just going to sit in my rocking chair and gather a Social Security check at the youthful age of 18 because there was nothing out there for me. I was lonely, I was isolated, and I dropped out of school for a whole year. Well, fast forward, thankfully, some point in my journey, I was able to crawl my way out of the depression hole, and I went to college because I knew that there was something more out there for me. And that is where I met my very, very first friend who also was blind, and his name was Nathaniel. And meeting him literally changed my life. He was doing things that I dreamed of doing. He had a long white cane, and he was going from class to class. He was an engineer student. He was doing math. He was learning Braille. He was totally blind. He went to the cafeteria to get his food every day. I couldn't do that, even though I had maybe just a little bit of vision. I didn't know how. And I asked him, how is it that you're doing what you're doing? Because whatever it is, I want some of that, please. And so that moment, he said, well, I go to the Society for the Blind, and I get training there. And they teach me how to use my computer, my technology, my long white cane. And we have a community of people who embrace me and support my dreams. And so he brought me to the most amazing place, the Society for the Blind. And the minute I went there, I saw blind people zipping around with their canes, going to place. And what more so, they were happy. They were happy living with vision loss. And I was like, how do you do that? What is it that you have? How did you move from isolation and depression, anxiety and fear to embrace a life of joy and promise and hope? And so they shared with me how to do it, and they slowly starting to mentor me and introduce me to the Department of Rehabilitation and opened a lot of doors for me. So I went to college, I was able to go to college, and then I came back to the Society for the Blind to serve my community. And that has been the greatest joy of my life, to be able to take the things that I have learned and experienced and to create a program called the Senior Impact Project to serve older adults who are experiencing vision loss at any stage of vision loss. I often say that vision loss is like the color blue. There are different shades of blue. So why don't we name a few? What shades of blue are out there? Go ahead, name some. Navy, sky blue, right? Dark blue. Yes, all different shades of blue. And that is exactly what aging with vision loss is like. There are different shades of vision loss. We may go through, the starting of a diagnosis like macular degeneration or diabetic retinopathy, right? When you go to the doctor and you hear that you are legally blind, and that hits you in the gut, because all of a sudden you're thinking, what is my life going to be like? What is the future that I have imagined for myself? I had thoughts of retiring, watching my grandchildren, living independently, and all of a sudden that sinking feeling in your gut says, I'm afraid. I'm alone. Who can help me? What do I do next? And then what does the doctor say to you? I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. And that's another gut-wrenching hit. And so you're left alone thinking, what do I do now? Because why? Because the doctors do not know how to refer you to the Society for the Blind or another agency that can help, or the Department of Rehabilitation. They don't know. They don't have this information. So you're left with your own thoughts of depression and isolation, and how am I going to drive? How am I going to get to the grocery store or the doctor or questions like that. So we at the program, we want to meet people who are experiencing vision loss for the very first time and know that no matter what degree or what stage they're going through, that they have a place here with us in the Senior Impact Project. And we come alongside of them, and we meet there in their home, maybe in their hospital, if let's say they emerge from a stroke or a brain tumor surgery, right? We walk along the side of them, and we show them how that they can live independently. We create a space for them to talk about their feelings, because vision loss is a loss. And the stages of grief and loss are real. Right? We've all maybe have experienced loss in our life. Well, it's the same when you are losing your vision. Anger, depression, isolation, fear, right? So we want to meet them where they're at, and we show them how. So we have classes. We have classes on mobility, how to travel with a long white cane out in the community. We go to wonderful places like the music circus or the grocery store or riding light rail or the Amtrak station. Because when you can't drive, what are you going to do? What are other options that you have? We work with people on how to ride paratransit, RT-GO for Sacramento. And that, they're doing their best, I know, but even then, it's not easy for an older adult to ride paratransit with vision loss. Because oftentimes, just even going to the doctor or coming to the Society for the Blind can take a whole day's journey. They have to wait long hours for the pickup, and then when they get there, they get there early, and they go to our program or go to the doctor, and then after that, the pickup time can be another hour from that point on. So it's a whole day's worth of time. And that's hard, for an older adult to go through. But we do our best to talk to them about mobility and to teach them how to use the cane. And technology. We have classes in technology, right? So how many of you love your iPhone or your Android phone? Say aye. Right? How many of you use it every day? Maybe talk to your iPhone more than you talk to your spouse, right? So technology, the iPhone, is such a revolutionary tool for our seniors experiencing vision loss. But the learning curve is great. And, technology, as Lane already pointed, it's new. It's scary sometimes, right? And so we have classes to work with older adults as to how to access technology. There are apps for the blind, on the iPhone that can read their mail or read their email or to be able to give them their location or tell them which way to go. So there are apps designed for the blind to do that. But again, the learning curve is great. And so what we have devised is we have older adults who are maybe a little bit ahead of the curve in learning how to use the iPhone to teach and mentor newly blinded seniors. And that is amazing. That really creates community. It creates, it's good for the person who is sharing the information and good for the person receiving it. So we really focus on mentorship as well in our programs. I know I'm taking a long time, but I want to touch on one more thing. So the one thing that I find really important in our program is the support groups. Being able to bring people together, helping them to know that they're not alone, and when somebody experiences the same anxiety and fear as the other person, there's instant connection and community building. And so one challenge that we have is getting people to our agency. So ever since the pandemic, we've had a remote support group called Coffee Connect that meets every Thursday at 10:30. And at first I was thinking, nobody's gonna come. But lo and behold, we have 30 to 40 people strong on this support group that I host every Thursday, and even some people calling out of state. And so we talk about issues like isolation and loneliness, and how do you organize your medication when you can't see? How do you clean your home? How does it feel when you're asking for help and nobody wants to help you? What do you do? Right? So we talk about all these real issues that they're facing every day. And this support group obviously is held in English, but we have other support groups that reach other community groups. So we have a support group that's a Spanish support group that's held specifically in Spanish. And that community is unique unto itself because it's culturally based. And some of the challenges they face is getting out in the community. There is a lot of fear because they feel like they can't communicate with the community. So not only are they blind or they're isolated, but they're living in fear and there's a language barrier. So that's really challenging for them. There is also a support group called the Black American Senior Support, BASS, and they are amazing. They are fun, they're energetic, they support each other, and they came together also during the pandemic, and they came because they wanted to address the intersectionality of systemic racism as well as vision loss. So that's a real unique situation, and they talk about how they navigate society and how they advocate for themselves, and they encourage each other. And then finally, I run a support group called the Asian Support Group because I identify as being Asian. And we came together as well during the pandemic because of the rise of the AAPI hate that we all had been experiencing during that time. And some of the seniors tell me, I don't go out with my cane as much anymore because I'm afraid. I'm not afraid of my vision loss per se navigating, but I'm afraid of the hate that's out there against Asians and my safety. And so that was really gut-wrenching to me because I had spent so much time working with them to get out of their home, to be able to travel safely in their communities, to go on walks, to go to the grocery store, to live the life that they wanted to live, and to have a community, have them feel like they're not supported by their community and them being afraid was really hard. But by coming together, they're able to tell their stories and uplift each other and tell their stories and have courage and do things that can really help them take that first step out, right? It's a step-by-step process. It doesn't happen overnight. So I'm really grateful to be able to be a part of this program and to experience these nuggets of joy in my everyday. Again, vision loss is challenging, but to be able to walk beside people and to know that we're not alone is amazing. And we're so grateful that all of you are here to support us too, and to help us to be that village, for us, and that we can lean on each other and learn from each other. Thank you.
Wow. Priscilla, what an incredibly powerful story, touching on so many important themes of challenges navigating and just finding out about services and how life-changing it was for you to be introduced to Society for the Blind. You touched on such critical themes of isolation and loneliness and how building community can really combat that. But the importance of recognizing social determinants such as housing and transportation to ensure that people actually have a way to get to the services they need. And how can we better connect our medical care system, our social services system, so that doctors can know to refer people to the wonderful resources like you talked about. So thank you for that wonderful, wonderful story of you sharing so much of what you learned. Now, I'm so grateful that we can focus on a really, really critical part of our population, and that is California has a little under 5 million family caregivers who are providing hands-on support and encouragement to their family as they age. Let's see a raise of hands in here. How many of you are either currently or have cared for an older family member as they age? Okay, so I think it's fair to say pretty much 90% everybody in here can identify as a family caregiver. But what's unique is that everybody's story is different. And we need to be so intentional about understanding these stories so that we can elevate them and address the challenges faced by our family caregivers. Because were it not for the family caregivers, many people would not be able to stay at home and avoid institutionalization. So Eily, we're so pleased to have you here today. You have talked about the support that you have provided your godmother, Kyoko, and would love to hear how this experience has been for you, what it's meant to you, and the challenges you've faced along the way. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's been an adventure. Let's start by saying that. Kyoko has basically been a part of my life since before I was born. She was good friends with my mom. She was good friends with my mom when she was pregnant, and after I was born, she was very much in my life. Till I was about 7 or 8, like a second mother. And if you look at the 2 pictures on the top, center 2 photos, that's actually not my mom, that's Kyoko, and believe it or not, that's me. That's a little scary. So she had a really strong independent spirit that got her out of post-war Japan, and she came to California in the 60s. And when she did so, she started a business and was very successful at it. However, that independent spirit that got her out of Japan also created friction with her family. She didn't always get along with her siblings back home. I don't think her parents so much approved of her coming to the United States maybe in the early 60s. So she kind of lost touch with them, and she had a bad relationship with them. And unfortunately, they started passing away little by little. So then if you fast forward maybe 30 years, I didn't know at the time there were signs of dementia, but I started noticing strange things happening with her. Not remembering things, she started creating stories in her head. She accused people of stealing spoons from her kitchen. And then when I realized she was going to need help, that's the moment I realized that there was no one to help her. She never got married, she never had any children, and any remaining family was roughly 5,400 miles away. So that's when the challenge began. That's when my challenge had started. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about helping someone aging. Luckily, through some friends, some of them here, and Google, I had heard that it's very important to try and keep them in their home as long as you possibly can. That's the best thing. And so she doesn't speak much English, so that was another issue. My Japanese is pretty bad. I can order at a sushi restaurant, but other than that, I can kind of get by, but I can't translate the complexities of the healthcare system and getting help for her. So I was very lucky in that in San Diego, I did find a organization that did Japanese language help in the home. And so, wow, that was huge. Because at the same time, I'm in a family, raising a kid, I'm working mostly full-time. And so there were a lot of time constraints for me helping her. Plus, she lives a half an hour away. So up and back is an hour of time. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how one looks at it, the caretakers were really, really good, and then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, for some strange reason, I got it in my head that I could not visit her because I couldn't be responsible, not just responsible, but I didn't want to bring the COVID virus to her and potentially have her die or get really, really sick from it. And that's when I experienced something that we had talked about, and both of you talked about a little bit, that I'd never expected to experience, and it was this incredible isolation. I felt a lack of support, but worst of all was this insane guilt. And I don't know if it's from my childhood or potentially from my culture, but I had immense guilt that I did not know how to deal with. And that, we'll get into that a little bit more later. So unfortunately, during COVID, the caretakers, I was getting reports back from the caretakers that they were not comfortable leaving her. They were worried that when she was going to reheat some food, that she might burn the house down, she might trip and fall. And now we're in the situation where I have to find a facility, for lack of a better description. I have to find a place for her that she's going to be well cared for. Again, lucky, the universe liked me that day. I did find a Japanese language facility with Japanese language caretakers, Japanese cooks for Japanese food, which is what she's eaten her entire life. It's been amazing. The cost, not so much. The cost has been incredible. It was astronomical. It still is astronomical. I was surprised at the cost. Probably many people here know much about that. But what happened, my journey, and what was so complicated was that I felt there was two components to my caretaking. There was the emotional support component and the fact that she's a family member, but I feel like I'm losing her through dementia. So there was that component where I was trying to support her emotionally and mentally as best as possible, as one can do with someone who has dementia. And then there's the logistical financial component, which I felt I was, kind of killing it on that side. I was doing really well with that. But when the isolation happened and when I started having the guilt, I withdrew, very much withdrew from her, which to this day I still have lots of guilt. It's very hard to deal with that. So I think my big two takeaways from this experience, and the two thoughts I'll leave you with, is my greatest hope, whether it be the Master Plan for Aging or a subset of the Master Plan for Aging, is that there's a place to get information quickly that will kind of, it gives you a shortcut. It gives you a shortcut to get into the type of care that she needs, because that was, sorry. That was difficult.
Well, I can say, Ailey, how incredibly fortunate Kyoko is to have you, and that we are fortunate to have you because it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to address these issues, and this is why we are here today. And I want to thank each of you for being so brave and telling your story. Yes, please finish.
Sorry, I mentioned two things. I mentioned I was going to say two things. I only said one. The second thing, and I'll be very short, is that everything was a life or death situation. That was the pressure I put on myself. I never felt like it was okay. What I was doing, my decision making. Apologize. Anyway, I wish somewhere I got to hear it's okay, it's okay. And I'm not saying the master plan for aging has to do that, but if there's a support network out there, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you. We are so appreciative of this. And I mean, I think that this elevates so much of why we're doing what we're doing. It's the why of the Master Plan for Aging. We've heard about issues that we're really trying to focus on, how people navigate the system. I've experienced it myself. My sister's here. She's experienced it. My mother-in-law's here. She's experienced it. How we access services. There aren't services that are available that are culturally responsive. You talked about how a gift it was to access services in Japanese that were culturally responsive. Priscilla, you gave so many amazing examples of the unique support that you provide all populations of people as they age. Access is so critical, and making sure that we have the programs and services people need. We also heard about the importance of access to transportation, and you can't get anywhere and engage in a community if you don't have transportation, and even more so if you don't have a place to live. And Elaine, you talked about the fear that you faced when you almost potentially faced losing your housing and a home. And we see this, unfortunately, all too often, and I know we'll hear that today from the stakeholders. We also heard about the importance of the workforce and our unpaid family caregivers and supporting people like you, Ailey, who are providing such important support to our loved ones in the community, but also our paid direct care workforce. And then finally, which an issue you all touched on somewhat, is this issue of how we finance it. People are having to impoverish themselves to pay for this care. And so these are all themes we're going to hear about today. And I want to thank each of you for uplifting them. But before we go, I would love to start with you, Elaine, and have you all answer one last question. As we embark on our journey ahead with the Master Plan for Aging, what is one thing that you would like to tell our state policymakers as they do this work that you think the system needs the most? You want to use your microphone?
I believe we need some kind of guidebook to inform people of their basic rights and basic needs, where they can find help, and have people in place that are culturally sympathetic to the cause when they come in, and tell people where to go, how to proceed. Something very basic, something very simple. They need some kind of pamphlet. Who do you call if you get stuck with a particular issue, i.e. whether it be housing, whether it be retirement? Who do I talk to? Or you don't even have to know what the problems are. If they have a problem with family issues, hey, Mrs. Jones, you can call so-and-so, maybe she can help you with this. It doesn't have to be, people need to know what's out there, what kind of help. They need some kind of pamphlet. They can get it in their Social Security checks, some little a blanketed notes telling them you can go this place to find out this information. They need something, and something simple that they would read, and letting them know that somebody cares. And you have a place to go.
Yes, thank you so much, Elaine. You can hold on to your microphone, thank you. Priscilla, what is your one word of hope that you would like to ask for in the Master Plan for Aging?
I think on the same lines as what Elaine said, but I would love to have a person or an agency, something, not just a pamphlet, but a human touch. Because for my seniors who are experiencing vision loss, even dialing the telephone is challenging when you can't see it. So being able to take that first step with somebody to journey with them.
Place to go and people to talk to help support you. Very important. Thank you. And Eiley, what about you?
I don't know if this will fall under the master plan for aging. I hope it does. When the caretakers were at Kyoko's house before she moved to the other care facility, I was paying the bills, as I was mentioning earlier, and I was surprised on an hourly basis how low their pay was. And if there's any way, I don't know if there's any economists out there, but if there is a way that those caretakers could get paid more, subsidized.
Well, you know, maybe we need to put all of you in charge of advancing the master plan for aging, because I think you have the answers for sure. So this has just been a very, very meaningful experience. I'm sure all of us today can speak to just how much we've learned in hearing your stories and the bravery it took to speak to this audience. And each of you, when we first met, said, I don't know if I really have something to contribute to this discussion. Well, can't we all say that that's not the case and that this is the most meaningful part? So thank you all for being here. And what's really nice now is that we have time for a 20-minute break. We're going to ask everybody to be back by 11:20. And I would ask you all to visit all of the lovely booths out in the common area out there. And I was asked by our Chief of Research, Ross Lallian, to please go visit the Data Dashboard for Aging live example of how it works and how you navigate the system. So please go visit the Data Dashboard and all the other fun activities out there and get some refreshments. We'll see you at 11:20. Thank you.